What's going on, guys? Hope everybody had a good weekend. In this video, we're going to be making this fire blast effect. You can download this model and the entire project for free in the description of the video. And yeah. Okay, so we're going to start out in Blender. You can see I've already deleted the default cube. You can press 7 on your keyboard to get a top view. Press Shift A and add a plane to the scene. You can press Tab to go into edit mode. Press S and X to scale this on the X-axis and make it the shape that you want it to be. We're just going to add a loop cut to the middle with Control R and then right click to leave it in the selected spot. Then we're going to go into vertices select and scale this on the X-axis so that it's scaled like this. Then we are going to shrink this side. So if you select these 3 vertices, you can press S and Y to scale it on the Y-axis. Then you can press Tab to go back to object mode. Press Control 2 to get a subdivision surface modifier. Turn up the levels viewport to 3. And then we're going to apply this. And then we can press Tab on our keyboard again. You can take this top vertice and just turn on proportional editing at the top. Press G and X and just move this inwards. You can scroll out on your mouse wheel to make it affect more of the vertices. If you press Tab again, you can select the very right vertice, make sure it's the middle one, and you can press Shift S and cursor to selected. Then you can press Tab to go back into object mode, and you can right click and set the origin to the 3D cursor. This will make it so that when this expands, it will grow outwards instead of growing from the middle. Then you're going to want to get a top view with the 7 on the keypad and then go to UV editing, and you can press 7 again and make sure that you are in edit mode. Select all of the vertices and press U, and you can press project from view. Make sure you don't use the bounds option. The bounds option will fill up the entire thing. So like you'll get this and the texture will be stretched. So we don't want that. Just do this. And then you can select this whole thing, press G and Y to move it up. Turn off proportional editing and just scale it so that it takes up as much of this as possible. And then after you're done that, this is pretty much it for making this. If you didn't follow this, you could just download my copy from the description of the video. We're going to export this as an FBX. I'm going to call mine Fire Attack. And I'm going to put it in my downloads folder. You could turn off bake animation. You don't need that, and just export it. Okay, so when you're done, you can drag the Fire Attack FBX file directly into your project. I've got it here. And I'm going to be attaching this one that says Brimstone 2 to the video. Obviously, I spent a little bit more time making it perfect and I messed with all the settings. So I'm going to go ahead and delete my Fire Attack. But like I said, that's how I made it. And you could just download this one from the description of the video. Now we're going to create a visual effect graph. So if we right click, we can click create visual effect graph. And we're just going to call this tutorial VFX. And if you don't see the visual effect graph option, you can go to the window at the top and then click package manager and then just search for visual and select the visual effect graph. If you haven't installed it, there'll be an install option right here and you can install it. So now that we've created the visual effect graph, we're just going to drag it directly into our scene on the left. If you double click on it, it should zoom in on it. You can hold Alt and left click to like reorient your camera so you can see it better. Just drag it upward so it's away from the ground. And then on the right side here, beside the tutorial VFX, you can click edit. And this gives you the window where you can actually edit the settings for the visual effect graph. So let's put this like this. We'll zoom out a little bit. We'll just like zoom back in and so that we can see both at the same time. Let's just make this way bigger. Hang on. Great. So this is the visual effect graph. If you've been watching my series, you're hopefully familiar with this already. And what we want to do is at the bottom here, we have an output particle quad. We just made a mesh. That's what we were doing in Blender. We were making a mesh. So we can delete this entire output particle quad and we can drag out and it will give us the option to create an output particle mesh. And what we can do is on the left here in our Brimstone, yours might be called Fire Attack. If you export it as Fire Attack, it'll be called Fire Attack here. You can drag the plane from this over top of where the mesh is. And then in this shader at the top, I'm going to be using the Brimstone shader for mine, but you won't have that yet. We're going to go over how to make that in a second. So it looks like it disappeared after we did this. So we just need to make this larger. So if you scroll up in this, you can click the spacebar over initialize particle and just set the size and just set the size to like 15 or something. And oh, it's because the angle is wrong. So also we're going to hit spacebar again and you can type in set angle. And we're just going to leave this for right now. At the bottom, we can click on output particle lit mesh, press the spacebar and type in camera. And we want to orient it towards the camera plane. And then after we're done that, we want to rotate the angle to probably 180 on the x-axis. Okay, so you can see that this is coming out here and it's kind of a little bit big. So let's drag it over to the door and we'll pretend that the door is the little tunnel thing. I am going to be posting the little tunnel thing that it's coming out of in the description of the video for free. So at this point, you could drag that tunnel into your scene if you want to do that. And we just want to change this to like 5 or something, so it's not so big. And then we'll save this. And then you won't have this shader yet, and you also won't have this shader option. So to get the shader option, because it's not there by default, if you click on Edit Preferences, if you go to Visual Effects, there's an option for Experimental Operators and Blocks. When you turn this on, the shader option appears. And the shader is something that we're going to go over, which is actually what makes this effect. But I have a color in this. I'm just going to change it to orange, and I'll just turn up the intensity. Okay, so we're just going to change a couple more things before we move on to making the actual texture and the shader for this. So we're just going to change the size to 7. We don't want the lifetime to be random. We want it to be always the same. So if you click on the random component here, you'll get more options on the right, and we're just going to turn off the random so that it's always the same lifetime, and the lifetime can just be 3 seconds. This is going to be the duration of the fire blast, and instead of spawning particles like this with the constant spawn rate, we only want one particle to appear, and then when it's done, it needs to disappear. So we don't want a bunch of particles appearing, so that's not how this is going to work. You could delete the constant spawn rate, you could click the spacebar and just do burst, a single burst. And we only want this to be 1, so you could also change the capacity to 1 so that only 1 is appearing at a time. And then when it's done, like after 3 seconds, it will disappear. So we also want this to fade afterwards. So if you click on the space bar, I think we can set the size over life. And we're just going to do like a kind of hump thing. So it starts at 0, it goes up to 1 in the middle, and then it shrinks down at the end, but it doesn't shrink down all the way to 0. It just shrinks down to like here, and you could rotate this so it's more smooth like this. So let's see how that works. So you can see this really shrunk the way that it looks. So that's because when you add set size over life, it's overwriting. So in the composition on the right here, we want to use multiply instead of overwrite. So then it will become bigger over the lifetime, and then it will shrink back down. So we don't actually want it to shrink that much. We just want to shrink it to like there maybe. So the point is that it starts out very small, and then it expands into its position like it's coming out of the tunnel thing. And the reason that it kind of looks so like sharp edged is because we're using multiples of this. So if we save this, we can copy this whole thing and just do Control-C, Control-V. And we'll do this one more time. So this is going to be the biggest one. We're just going to turn down the, so we're going to change the color to a more orangey color, and we're just going to turn this down. You won't be able to do this yet. You're going to have to do this after we create the shader. I just want to get this fully out of the way first. So we're going to have a dark orange as the, this is going to be the outer one. This is going to be the middle one, so it can be a little bit more orange and a little bit higher intensity, maybe like 2 or something. And then the inner one is going to be the brightest one. So we're going to leave this as yellow, and we can leave it at the same color as the initial one. So we want to set the size of each of these to be, so this one could be 5, this could be 6, and then this could be 7. And so you can see that now that they're overlapping, it looks more realistic. So in the game view, we'll get directly top-down view. So I'm in the scene view, and because this is completely flat, it actually affects how it looks. So this looks actually really good like this. And you could play with this color. Maybe this is a little bit too dark. Maybe you want this to be a little bit more red, actually. And let's save it like that. Yeah, that's looking really cool. And then the brightest one could be maybe a tad bit brighter. Let's see what 4.7 looks like. Okay, so now we need to go over how we made the shader for this. So we need to draw 2 pictures. So one of the pictures is going to be the actual effect itself, like the actual beam that's coming out. And the second picture is going to be a mask. So the mask is going to be used, the black values are transparent and the white values are the actual color. So if you look at our beam, so on the right side of this, you can see that this is circular, but you can't see this proportion of it. So it looks like it abruptly cuts off instead of being circular. If it was like actually cylindric, you would see like an actual circle here at the end and would actually kind of ruin the effect. It would just look like the shape that we had in Blender. So we don't actually want that. So to make these textures, what you can do is you can download, there's a free program called Krita. And inside of Krita, there's a mode called Seamless Mode. And you can use this to create textures that are seamless. So we'll just click New Image. Like I said, you can download this from the internet for free. And then you can just change the opacity of your brush down to something a lot less. So maybe like 40%. And then you can just make your brush a little bit bigger, so it's taking up more of the screen. So maybe like that. And then just do this in one pass if you can. So like, yeah, like that. And then as you go over this, it will become more black in the middle. Okay, let me just see what I did with mine. Okay, and we actually want this to be white and not black. So when you're done drawing, you can invert it. So let me invert. Okay, so after you invert this, you just need to turn off the background. So turn this, how do I turn off the background? Oh, the opacity, there we go. So after you've turned off the opacity, you should see you have like kind of like a white brush here, and then we can go ahead and we can export this. And so we're just I'm gonna save it into my downloads folder, and I'll call this tutorial wave.png. And I think that's fine. Yeah, so then if we open this, you can see it's similar to the one that I had. It's not perfect. Like this one I spent a little bit longer on. It looks like I made this one thicker. So you'll have to play around with it and get whatever you like. But this is the gist of what I did to make this. It's very close. Anyway, so these pictures, they'll be attached to the description of the video. You can just download them for free. Then to make the mask, we use a gradient. So let's create a new image, and this doesn't need to be this large. It could just be 500 by 500. The reason that one has to be so large is because we're stretching it across the entire room. So when it stretches, it will lose its resolution if it becomes too large. So let's create a 500 by 500. And then we just need to get the gradient tool, which is right here. And then we can draw from, I think, left to right, maybe. Just make sure this looks good. Yeah, so, something like that. So the point of this is just that this end is going to be dark, and then this is going to be lighter. Now you can see that mine's a little bit different. I didn't actually do it like this. So I did, I think this gradient, but then I clicked edit. And so this side will be black. This side will be white. And then this is actually a little bit grayer than that. And then this key could be white. You don't have to do this. So then after you're done that, you could just drag it. So if you do that gradient, it's like this. And you can kind of see that's what I did with my actual pictures. So if you look at the gradient that I have in the mask that I have, you can see like it starts out gray and then there's a white light beam and then it goes all the way to black the normal way. So this actually affects kind of how it looks a little bit, so that there's like a bright spot in the middle of it. So you see right here, it gets a little bit brighter. It's not really that noticeable, but there's like a section that's just a little bit brighter. So then after you have these textures, so you just have to export this and you could save it as like filter or something. But yeah, so after you're done this, you can export both of these textures, and then you can right click at the bottom and you can create a shader graph, URP lit shader graph. And I'll just call this tutorial fire blast shader. So when you open this, I'm just going to open the one that I have. You need to go into the graph inspector up here. And then on the left, you have to open the graph settings. And these are the settings that I use. It's important that you check off support VFX graph. If you don't turn this on, you won't see it in the dropdown inside of your VFX graph that we made. So this step might need to be done before the other one. I might switch the order of the video so this actually appears before the other step. But yeah, so make sure you copy the settings. So lit, metallic, transparent, because there's transparency. The blend mode is alpha. The render face is both. That's not the default. The depth right auto. I think that's, yeah, I turned on alpha clipping as well. Okay, so after you're done that, you can click on the blackboard on the right here, and then you go in and add a variable called color. So just click this plus button and click color. And if you click on this color in the graph inspector, we've made the mode HDR. If you don't change this to HDR, you can't use the intensity to make it brighter. Okay, so I apologize in advance because this is kind of a mess. So if we're looking at this, you can see that I've dragged in, this is the mask. You need to convert this to a sprite before you try to drag it in here. So in this drop down, you can click sprite. After you do that, you can drag down here and click apply. And I dragged in 2 of them. I was going to make the beginning of it fade as well. So I've used the rotate node at 0.5. This is where it's rotating, like the origin. So 0.5 is like the middle of it. And rotating 180 degrees gives this on the left instead of the right. I'm just going to delete this because it's not connected to anything. So this is kind of a mess, but so I've dragged in this sample texture, and then this is the other texture. So like I've labeled it Brimstone, but here's what we called Fire Attack. Initially I was going to make Brimstone similar to the game The Binding of Isaac, but it just didn't turn out like that. That's why it kind of looks like this in the picture. So yeah, so you just drag both of these in the same way. So if you just drag this in, it creates a sample texture 2D automatically. And we're using these nodes to animate this. So anytime you take a time node and you multiply it by a vector 2 and you put it into the offset of a tiling and offset, it will make it scroll. That being said, the Brimstone, you have to change the wrap mode to repeat. If you don't, it will just do one iteration of it and then it will disappear as if it's not there. Like it will just fade into nothing. And we're multiplying this on the x-axis only because we only want it to go left and right. We don't want it to go like up and down or like diagonal. So then the tiling and offset node that is making the animation happen is also going into 2 noise nodes. So one is a simple noise and one is a gradient noise. We're using this to cut away holes inside of the thing. So if you look, all these little holes that are happening, these are caused by these noises being added. This step node as well, basically if you look at these, there's like transitions between the 2. So there's like gray and there's black and there's white. So there's like, it's like a gradient kind of thing. Whereas like if you add it to the step node, any value that's below 0.4, 1 being white, 0 being black, anything that's above 0.4 will turn into white, and anything that's below 0.4 will turn into black. So like if I take the gradient noise and I put it directly into here, instead of using the step node, I'll show you the difference. So if you look at this, you can see there's no holes. Like it fades between the colors, but there's no actual cutout holes, and we want there to be cutout holes. We want all of like the little dots to be fully removed from the shader. So if you go to the shader and we put it back to the step node, you'll see the difference. Let me save it. So if you look, let me see if I can pause this. So if you look, you can see that this makes actual holes in it, and it looks a lot cooler because the holes. So the step node is how you can accomplish that, and you can turn up that number. The higher the number is, the less holes there'll be. So that's pretty cool. And then we're also multiplying this by a gradient. This is cutting away the beginning part. So this is the same thing as this. So instead of using a texture for this part, I just used a gradient. Again, this shader's kind of all over the place because I've been messing with it for so long. When you go to make something in a game, it never just works out the first time. You just have to like mess with it until it works. But I created a gradient so the front part will be black, and it's not just like all the way at the edge, it's over a little bit. And then, so this makes it so the very front of this, you can see, is kind of faded away. So this is cut away because it's black, it's fully black. If you change this to not be there, so like if we get rid of this multiply, and we'll just multiply by 1, and we go back to the scene. Oh, I have to press the play button. So let's pause it again, and we'll just get the hand tool so we can see the beginning of it. So if you don't add this, it just, oh no. Okay, so then you got so this is actually on this side. Okay, so this is the circle effect on the end. It's not actually this side, it's this side. But anyway, so you can see like it adds this like circle shape to it, and you can see the circles inside of it, and it's kind of ugly. So this really adds a lot to fixing it. Then this gradient is used for the actual color itself. So we're using this to make the end of the gradient darker, but this doesn't actually go into the alpha directly, even though we're splitting this and taking the alpha and putting it into this multiply. It doesn't look like it affects it because you can see that here. It should be on the right. I don't know if this is actually doing anything then. Okay, because here at the end it's a little bit black, but here when we pass this, it's not black. So if we wanted this to work, we probably need to push the red to this, and then this will make this black. We're not going to do that. We're not going to bother. This is not I don't think this is doing anything directly. I think we could go from here directly into here and it will be the same. And then we could get rid of this split node. Let me just save it and make sure it doesn't actually affect it. Hang on. Okay, and then we're taking a gradient. And when you use a gradient, the only output possibility is a sample gradient. If you just use a sample gradient, you just get the color at the position. So 0 is the very left of the gradient, 0.5 is like halfway through the gradient, and 1 is at the end. In order for you to use it as an actual gradient, you have to plug in a UV node, or you could use something else like Fresnel works as well. So like if you created a Fresnel node, you could pass the output of this into here and then you could get like cool things like that. We're not going to go through that right now, but if you just use a UV node, you'll get the gradient the way that it is. And we're using this to make the middle of it a little bit brighter. So this is the gradient that I have. So I just have like a kind of orangey red here, and I've set the intensity to 1.87. And then in the middle, this will be a high intensity, so 4.9. And then at the end, this would be the same red as before. It's a little bit higher intensity than the other red. And we're taking this gradient and we're multiplying it by this beam. And we're doing this without the noise because we want the color to apply everywhere. And then this will go into the multiply that's here. And the output of this goes into a multiply that's multiplying it with a color because we want to be able to control the color for each beam. So the default color right now is red, but this is the color that we changed in the actual tutorial shader. So when we were changing the color earlier, this is where we were changing it. So this just allows us to like multiply the color, like the output color, by a different color and get like a different final result while keeping this kind of gradient going. So if it's multiplied by red, like the darker parts will be red and the middle parts will be like, it's based on like the color that you multiply it by. And then we're using the alpha of this for the rest of, oh yeah, because this already has the noise applied to it. So we applied the simple noise to this one, and then this is going into the split, and we're just taking the alpha of this instead of like the color. And then because when we're putting this into the alpha, which is like what's visible, so we don't need the color for that. And then after that, then we're multiplying this by like the gradient noise. So the regular noise, simple noise, is going into this multiply, and then the gradient noise is being only multiplied by the alpha. So I think that's it for the shader graph. I know it's a little bit of a mess. It's kind of sloppy, but like I said, like when you're making these kind of things, you just spend a bunch of time just messing with it, and I'm not going to remake it from scratch just to do the video. This entire project and all of these files are going to be available in the description of the video for free. So if you got lost along the way, you could just download this and it will be exactly like it is. So then the last thing that we have to do is make a script for it. Okay, so here we are in the room with the actual blasters that I've made. This blaster is going to be attached as a package to the description of the video. So all of the files that you need, they're going to be saved inside of this blaster package, and all you'll have to do is double click on it with the URP project open, and it will import this entire file, including the script, and all the things will already be attached to it. So you can see that we have the brimstone inside of it. That's just what I've called it because, again, like I said, it was going to be brimstone, but it's just it turned out to not be brimstone. There's also these 3 lights, and each of them we've created a material at the bottom here. So the emission on this one is set to green, but the base map is just white, and then the light, the second one and the third one are just black because they're not turned on yet. So when the game is running, these cycle. So you need to create 3 materials for this. Will, like, if you download the wall blaster, this will already be included. So these materials will already be added to your scene or your game automatically. So it'll just be a prefab, and you'll just have to drag it into the scene. So we also have a cylinder inside of here that is transparent. And so if you click on the emission blaster material, I've created this transparent material. When it blasts, I don't know if you can see it right there, but there's like a cylinder that I placed right inside of this. So this will go white, like it will actually have full alpha, and then it will turn on the emission to like yellow or something, and it will turn up the intensity to like a high number, so that when you're looking at it from the bottom, it will glow at the end of the thing where it's shooting out. I'm just going to turn this back, but yeah, so that's how like the glow in the thing is working. Let me just go into the actual game. Let me just run this. Hang on. So you can see like the thing at the end is glowing. So that's how we made that kind of effect. And so these 3 lights, you can see that the material that is getting actually changed to the different materials. So green and then yellow and then red. And like it just changes while it's running. This is all done via script. I'm just showing you the different components before I actually go into the script. So that's it. And there's a bunch of settings you can change, like the emission intensity, like how bright it glows, the delay between it stopping and starting again. So like there's a 1 second after it's done everything, there's 1 second before it starts the sequence again. This is the effect, and the radius is how large the blast radius is. So if I turn on gizmos, you can see like there's a line that's shooting out of this. This is how hits are, like if it hits your character. The visual effect graph doesn't actually have collision detection. So in order for you to detect whether it's hit your character or not, you need to do a sphere cast from this. And we're going to go through the code for this, but this is the radius of how like wide the attack is. And then the length is how far this goes. So like it only goes to here. So if you walk down here, you won't actually get hit by it. Okay, so this is kind of the last part of the video. So these are all the declarations of the variables at the top. Then we have in the start method, we're using a coroutine for the entire thing because everything is cycling. So we're not going to be doing anything in like the update or anything like that. It's all handled through one coroutine, and it just goes through everything and then it restarts itself. So while true just means that forever, essentially. This is just a forever loop. This will keep happening over and over and over again forever until the object is disabled. So we're setting activated to false. This is just a Boolean, like a true or false, that we're using to detect. So while the action is being performed, you can get hit by the line that's coming out of it. So this is what actually allows your character to be hit. If it's activated, that means it's happening. So right away we're turning that off because the brimstone is not happening right away. It cycles through the lights first. We're stopping the brimstone effect. Remember, this is happening on repeat. So after it's done, like after we wait, the brimstone effect stops. Reinit will clear all of the particles and all the stuff for the visual. It will restart everything for the visual effect. We're setting the emission for the brimstone material to be nothing, so this will hide the cylinder that's at the end of the tube will be set to 0. Yeah, so let's go through the set emission method. So this is just that cylinder that's at the end of the thing it glows while it's shooting. So let's hit F12, and so setting the emission, we're just setting the color with .set color, and you can just change the emission color. It's a shader, so you can use underscore emission color to set it to the final color, and then you have to enable the emission. So we are turning it on and off. If it's not on, this will enable it. We're leaving it on the entire time because you're setting it to black afterwards. It will be invisible anyway. It's if it's set to black, it doesn't do anything. So this is what we're doing for set emission. So the brimstone material, because this is the beginning of the effect, the brimstone material is only applying when it's actually happening. So this just turns off the brimstone material. Then we're setting the green material, which is the first light. So that's the brimstone material in the tube at the end right there. So that's the brimstone material. This is the green light, yellow light, red light. So if we look back at the code, we're setting the green material to the green color, and the emission intensity is the input. So it's 5. So if you want to make the lights brighter, you can just turn that up. So then we're waiting the delay, which is 1. So after 1 second, then the yellow light will turn on. After 1 second, the red light will turn on. Then after 1 second, all 3 of them will turn on, but we're choosing a color using new color, and 1 and 0.5 is this color that you see. And we're setting the emission to 500, which is ultra high, but the way that we're setting it is with linear to gamma space, which is not the same as just setting the number. Like, it's not like 500 intensity. It doesn't work like that. This is a special calculation that changes how it looks. So we're setting all of those to this full orange color, and then we're performing the actions. We're starting the coroutine to perform the action. So if we go down to perform action, we're turning on the brimstone material, which is just this cylinder, to the full yellow. We're playing the brimstone effect, which is the visual effect that we spent the majority of the video making. We're setting activated to true, which makes it so that we're always performing this sphere cast, but if activated is not true, then it won't actually hit your character. So we're setting activated to true so that your character can get hit. We're setting the duration of the action to 3 seconds. The elapsed time is how long it's been. So while the elapsed time is less than the action duration, we're basically just increasing the elapsed time, and we're performing the sphere cast, which is this command down here. And then it will only, so the perform sphere cast just shoots a sphere down the thing, and if it hits your character, it outputs it to the debug log. Let me just get rid of this. We don't need to, I'm not debugging it anymore. This works. If it hits my character, if you're putting this in your game, make sure you name this whatever your game object is. We're using the take damage from a previous video that we made. So this is where your script to damage your character would go if you're not using my game. So yes, you would just damage your character here if it hits it. And then we're using on draw gizmos to actually draw this line. So we've got a sphere gizmo here, and then this line is what shows you like where the damage would happen. So like it only goes to here, and you can't make like a cylindric gizmo. That's not a thing. So as far as I know anyway, maybe it is a thing, but I don't think there's a cylindric one, so we're just using a line. We're drawing a line with the gizmos. Yeah, so then after it's done, so after the 3 seconds, it will go back into this. So this is the perform action. So when this finishes, because it's yielding the return of this, so when this finishes, it will come back and set all the emissions for everything back to 0. And then it will wait half a second and it will just go through the loop again. So that's how the entire thing is working. It's not too complicated. If you guys have any questions, you could definitely leave a comment in the description of the video. And there's also a Discord channel. So if you're making a game and you need any help with anything, you could definitely join my Discord. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.